Hello, welcome back. I'm Carlos, and I'm taking you for a quick spin and showing you some of the things we're bringing forward on this pilot. If you just landed here on this video, I'd recommend that you watch the first and the second video so that you know what we have previously configured and you can follow along. Now, as you've heard me before, if you have watched the other two videos, what I'm showing you here actually belongs to the roadmap and pilot capabilities realm, which means that our forward-looking statements and safe harbor applies here from now onwards. And with that, let's kick it off again. This is actually the third and final video. So we've done a couple of things since the first video. We've essentially created a basic Omni+Flow routing scenario here where all of the chats that are coming in are being routed to our standard chat queue, if you may. From there, we actually built upon the queue-based routing scenario, adding a little bit more richness to it, grabbing the contact that's coming attached with the chat record, checking if that customer is a VIP, from there taking an action, sending the customer to the VIP queue, otherwise sending the customer to the standard chat queue. And that was our queue-based routing scenario. From there, we created a skill-based routing scenario in which we said, go ahead and grab the contact, also actually grab the case that's created by the pre-chat form capability that we built together as well in the first video. And from there, make sure we get someone who is skillful in chat. And if actually the request is about an order, let's find someone that actually has that order skill and take action. Otherwise, we only need the chat skill. So now I want to take you to a third scenario, which is the direct to agent routing scenario. But before we do that, I thought of adding an additional layer to this scenario that I should have added in the previous video, but I just forgot. Let's go ahead and do that now. So let's add a new condition here, and actually let's just edit this subject, and we can say if subject is about order or technical problem, and we can actually update the API name here. There we go. We could add an additional branch and say if technical problem. You probably remember, if you saw the first video, that we added in the pre-chat form the capability for the customer to define what was the reason, what was the case reason for it. And so this is what we're going to leverage now. And so here what we're going to say is we're going to go ahead and grab the case here, and if case reason here is set to existing problem, and even we could say or. So let's grab actually the case reason again. New problem. Then we need to add an additional skill requirement here and say add technical requirement. Let's use the skill list requirement that we created earlier. If this does not sound familiar, please go back to the second video. And let's go ahead and target the technical skill that we have here. Now, if you saw the second video, you know now that you could add additional skills. For the moment, I'm going to focus on one, but this is where you could add complexity. It could be technical skill on a specific language, for example. Remember that this needs to be also set up as an output because we need to pass it in and out. And so I'm going to connect here the third branch for technical requirement, and I'm gonna route to skill. And that's it, we got it. So maybe I'm gonna try to do a little bit of design here so that it looks a little bit better. Okay, so chat comes in, we grab the contact, we grab the case, we make sure we have someone who has the chat skill that's required. So if it's about an order, I have two skill requirements, chat and order, and then we route to those skills. If it's actually about a technical problem, and that was specifically requested by the customer, then I need the chat skill and the technical requirement skill, both of them, and I route to skill. Otherwise, I only need the chat skill requirement. And that's an additional layer to the skills-based routing scenario that we leverage on video number 2. And now to the final scenario that I wanted to show you on this video. It's the direct to agent routing experience. But before I do that, let's actually save this, and let's say we can save it as the advanced routing. That's fine. Now let's add a different decision node here up front. We're gonna check if the customer has a preferred agent. This could be because you would like the customer to speak with the last agent they spoke to, or because you have a sense of a one-to-one account relationship, or for whatever other business criteria you would like. We could choose to route this directly to that specific and preferred agent. So let's go look at the contact and see whether or not there's a preferred agent. Drag and drop that decision node, check preferred agent, let's call it, contact preferred agent. We're gonna go ahead and get the contact from the chat, okay? And see if there is the field contact preferred agent. And if there's a value in there, if this is set to true, then I actually want to route to that individual. Now let's drag and drop the route to work action and route it to that very preferred agent. Route to contact preferred agent. Let's grab that. Let's grab the chat. And instead of choosing queue skill or skills, we're going to choose agent. Now here, I could manually look for an agent. This doesn't make it very dynamic, so I'm actually going to go ahead and use a variable in which I'm going to go ahead and get the contact for chat, and I'm going to go ahead and look for the contact preferred agent field. Now I can actually require this to be only that very agent. Or if not, I could also use a backup queue. And in this case, I will use the standard chat backup queue. If there's a preferred agent, I'll link to that. Otherwise, I'll follow with the flow. I'm just going to make this look a little bit better for you. And that's it. We have our direct to agent routing scenario here. I'll get the contact, I'll get the chat. I'll see if there's a preferred agent. If that's the case, I'll route to this person. Otherwise, I'll follow along as we saw just earlier. And that's the direct to agent scenario. So let's go ahead and actually save it. Let's create a new flow, including direct to agent. And here we go. Okay, so that does it for the direct to agent scenario. There's a final scenario that I would like to show you. Let me actually do a little bit of housekeeping here so that you can look at this a little bit better. Let's say that if this is about a complex problem, like for example, a complex functionality, then you would want to update the case to the most critical priority. Let's add a decision here. Is it a complex problem? Is complex problem. We're going to grab this from the chat and we're going to target the reason complex functionality. And now, if this is what's happening, then I'm going to want to assign case priority to critical, and we'll look for that case that we can grab and we'll say priority and we'll set it up to critical. And of course, I need to update the case. If it's a complex problem, then I'll go ahead and update the case. Otherwise, I'll just continue my standard flow. The point being here that if you want to do custom logic as you go through this, that's where it gets interesting as you have the entire power of the flow builder to do it. I'm going to go ahead and save this as, I'm going to create a new flow and call it additional business logic. And that's it for the final and third video. A very quick recap. We started by creating a basic omnichannel flow, routing to our standard chat queue. From there, we built additional logic, grabbing the contact, checking whether to see if the customer was a VIP, and if that was the case, routing to the corresponding VIP queue. From there, we moved to a skill-based routing scenario, grabbing the contact, grabbing the case, making sure that the chat skill is required, and if customers are contacting about an order, then adding an additional skill, as well as in order handling. From there, we built further this scenario. We added an additional branch for the skill-based routing, in which we imagined a situation where if customers are contacting for orders or about technical problems, we also want to add an additional skill requirement for chat as well as technical issues. Finally, here we added the direct to agent experience. If customers actually have a preferred agent, this is where we are able to actually to fulfill this need. And the final step we built here was essentially adding additional logic to this more advanced routing scenario, in which if there was a complex problem, we would update the case priority to critical, and from there we would follow through the previous Omni flow that you saw. Thanks for watching.